7-year-old Danny Martinez had autism and a habit of wandering off when the world became too overwhelming. But he also had Max, a specially trained therapy dog, who understood him better than any human ever could. On the night Danny disappeared from his bedroom at 2 a.m., walking barefoot into the darkness of suburban Denver, Max did something extraordinary. The golden retriever didn't just follow Danny, he became his guardian, his guide, and ultimately his lifeline back home through a journey that would prove the unbreakable bond between a special needs child and his four-legged best friend. Welcome to Saved by Tales. Before we dive into this heartwarming story of an extraordinary therapy dog's devotion to a vulnerable child, tell me in the comments, have you ever witnessed the special bond between a child with special needs and their therapy animal? And if you believe these incredible stories of unconditional love and protection deserve to be shared, hit that subscribe button and join our community celebrating the four-legged heroes who see beyond disabilities to the precious souls that need their protection most. Danny Martinez was diagnosed with severe autism spectrum disorder at age 3. He was largely nonverbal, hypersensitive to sounds and lights, and had a tendency to elope, the clinical term for when autistic children wander away from safety, often with no awareness of danger. By age 7, Danny had attempted to leave his house, his school, and public places dozens of times, always seeking quiet, dark spaces where the overwhelming sensory input of the world couldn't reach him. His parents, Sarah and Miguel Martinez, had tried everything: locks, alarms, behavioral therapy, medication adjustments. Nothing seemed to prevent Danny's wandering episodes when his autism became too much to handle. That's when they met Max. Max was a 3-year-old golden retriever who had been specifically trained as an autism service dog by Rocky Mountain Service Dogs, a non-profit organization in Colorado. Unlike emotional support animals, Max was a working dog with specialized skills designed to help autistic children navigate the world safely. Max has been trained to detect when Danny is becoming overstimulated, explained trainer Jennifer Walsh during their first meeting. He can sense anxiety, predict elopement behavior, and even track Danny if he does wander off. More importantly, he provides deep pressure therapy, emotional regulation, and a constant calming presence. The bond between Danny and Max was instantaneous and profound. Danny, who rarely made eye contact with humans and struggled with physical touch, immediately curled up next to Max, burying his face in the dog's golden fur. Max remained perfectly still, as if he understood that this little boy needed him in ways that went beyond training or commands. "I've never seen Danny connect with anyone like this," Sarah told Miguel that first night as they watched their son sleeping peacefully with Max curled up beside his bed. "It's like Max sees straight into Danny's soul." Over the following months, Max became Danny's constant companion and protector. The golden retriever learned Danny's routines, anticipated his needs, and provided intervention before meltdowns could escalate into elopement attempts. When Danny became overstimulated at the grocery store, Max would position himself as a barrier between Danny and other shoppers, then provide deep pressure therapy by leaning against the boy's legs. When loud noises triggered Danny's anxiety, Max would guide him to quiet corners and perform calming behaviors. Most importantly, Max had been trained in tethering, a technique where Danny wore a special harness connected to Max's vest. If Danny tried to wander off, Max would plant his feet and refuse to move, preventing the boy from leaving safety. "Max has given us our lives back," Sarah told their pediatrician during a follow-up appointment. "Danny hasn't had a major elopement episode since Max arrived. We can actually go places as a family now." The improvement in Danny's quality of life was remarkable. With Max's calming presence, Danny began sleeping through the night. His anxiety decreased, his rare verbal communications increased slightly, and his self-injurious behaviors nearly stopped completely. But Max's most important test would come on a cold October night, when his training would be pushed to its absolute limits. October 15th had been a difficult day for Danny. A fire drill at school, construction noise near their house, and an unexpected schedule change had left him overstimulated and agitated. Despite Max's best efforts to provide calming intervention, Danny had experienced several small meltdowns throughout the day. Sarah had given Danny a bath, read him his favorite book, and tucked him into bed with Max curled up on the floor beside him. The house had finally settled into peaceful quiet by 10 p.m., with both parents exhausted from managing Danny's challenging day. At 2:17 a.m., Sarah woke to a sound that made her blood run cold, the soft click of the front door closing. She rushed to Danny's room and found it empty. The bed was unmade, Danny's pajamas were gone, and most alarming of all, Max was nowhere to be seen. The dog's leash hung unused on its hook, meaning Max had followed Danny of his own accord. "Miguel," Sarah screamed, waking her husband. "Danny's gone, and Max is with him." Miguel immediately called 911 while Sarah ran outside in her robe, calling Danny's name into the darkness. The suburban Denver neighborhood was quiet and cold, with temperatures dropping toward freezing. Danny was somewhere out there in thin pajamas with no coat, no shoes, and no way to communicate his location if he became lost or hurt. Within 20 minutes, the Martinez quiet neighborhood was flooded with emergency vehicles. Police officers, firefighters, and search and rescue volunteers began combing the area, but everyone understood the unique challenges of finding an autistic child. Autistic kids often don't respond to their names being called, explained Sergeant Rodriguez, who had training in autism-related searches. They might actually hide from searchers, especially if they're overwhelmed, and they tend to seek out water, dark spaces, or areas that provide sensory comfort. The search team spread out in all directions, checking storm drains, abandoned buildings, parks, and the small creek that ran through the neighborhood. But as the hours passed with no sign of Danny or Max, the temperature continued to drop and the urgency increased. Hypothermia becomes a serious risk after 4 hours in these conditions, the paramedic team leader warned, especially for a child Danny's size. Sarah and Miguel waited at home in case Danny returned, but their anxiety was overwhelming. Danny had never been gone this long, and while they were grateful that Max was with him, they knew that even a trained service dog couldn't protect a 7-year-old from every danger. What the search teams didn't know was that Max was conducting his own rescue operation using skills that went far beyond his formal training. The golden retriever had followed Danny out of the house, staying close but not interfering as the boy walked through the dark neighborhood. Danny, overwhelmed by the day's sensory challenges, was seeking the kind of quiet, enclosed space that brought him comfort. He walked for over an hour, with Max padding silently beside him, until he found what he was looking for, a small maintenance shed behind an abandoned gas station, about 2 miles from home. The shed was dark, quiet, and provided the sensory relief that Danny's overstimulated nervous system craved. He curled up in a corner and quickly fell asleep, exhausted from his long walk and the day's overwhelming experiences. Max positioned himself between Danny and the door, creating a barrier of warmth and protection. But the golden retriever understood that this wasn't a permanent solution. Danny was getting cold, he had no food or water, and he needed to get home to safety. Throughout the night, Max alternated between providing warmth for Danny and attempting to wake him gently, using the techniques he'd been trained to employ when Danny needed to transition from one activity to another. As dawn approached, Max began more assertive intervention. He nudged Danny awake and began the behavioral sequences that had been trained to encourage the boy to follow him. When Danny resisted, Max used his body to guide the boy toward the door, providing gentle pressure and warmth to keep him calm. Danny, still seeking sensory regulation, didn't want to leave the quiet shed, but Max's persistent, gentle guidance eventually convinced him to stand up and follow the dog outside. What happened next would demonstrate the remarkable bond between boy and dog. Max didn't head directly home. Instead, he led Danny on a careful route that avoided busy streets, loud construction zones, and other sensory triggers that might cause the boy to shut down or bolt in a different direction. The golden retriever had memorized Danny's sensory preferences and was using that knowledge to create a path home that wouldn't overwhelm the autistic child. They walked slowly, with Max stopping frequently to allow Danny to process his environment and regulate his anxiety. When Danny became upset by a barking dog behind a fence, Max guided him to the opposite side of the street. When a garbage truck created loud noise, Max led Danny to a quiet park where they waited for the sound to pass. Every decision Max made was based on his understanding of what Danny needed to feel safe and calm. The search had continued all night, with dozens of volunteers joining police and firefighters in combing every inch of the neighborhood. By 7 a.m., the search radius had expanded to include areas more than 3 miles from the Martinez home. That's when Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman walking her own dog, spotted 2 figures moving slowly down Maple Street, a small boy in pajamas and a large golden dog walking protectively beside him. "I see them," she called to the police officer who was searching the next block. "The little boy and his dog, they're walking this way." Within minutes, Sarah and Miguel Martinez were running toward their son, tears streaming down their faces. Danny, still overwhelmed and exhausted, didn't react to their approach with his usual anxiety. Instead, he remained calm, leaning against Max's reassuring presence. "Danny, baby, we were so worried," Sarah said softly, dropping to her knees beside her son. She knew better than to grab him or overwhelm him with intense emotions, but her relief was overwhelming. Max's tail wagged slowly as he looked up at Sarah and Miguel, as if to say, "I brought him home safely, just like I promised." The reunion was covered by local news outlets, highlighting both the dangers of autism elopement and the incredible bond between therapy dogs and the children they serve. But for the Martinez family, the most important outcome was understanding how much Max had done to keep Danny safe. Max didn't just follow Danny, explained Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who had originally trained the dog. He managed the entire situation using his understanding of Danny's autism. He let Danny reach the place where he felt safe, then guided him home using a route designed to prevent sensory overload. Security cameras from businesses along their route showed the careful way Max had navigated Danny through potentially overwhelming situations, always positioning himself to provide comfort and guidance without forcing the boy to do anything that would increase his anxiety. What Max did was remarkable, Dr. Walsh continued. He essentially became Danny's external processing system, making decisions that kept both of them safe while respecting Danny's autistic needs. The incident led to significant changes in the Martinez household and community. Additional locks were installed, door alarms were upgraded, and Danny began wearing a GPS tracker designed specifically for children with autism. But most importantly, the community gained a deeper understanding of autism and the challenges faced by families dealing with elopement behaviors. The local police department implemented new training protocols for autism-related searches, and several neighbors volunteered to help monitor the area for children who might wander. Danny's disappearance scared all of us, said neighbor Tom Rodriguez, but seeing how Max protected him and brought him home safely, it showed us that these therapy dogs aren't just pets, they're genuine lifesavers. Max received recognition from Rocky Mountain Service Dogs and the International Association of Canine Professionals for his exceptional service to Danny during their night away from home. In the months following the incident, the relationship between Danny and Max grew even stronger. Danny began showing increased trust in Max's guidance, following the dog's leads more readily, and seeming to understand that Max was looking out for his safety. It's like Danny finally understands that Max is his protector, Sarah observed during a follow-up appointment with their autism specialist. He listens to Max in ways he doesn't listen to humans, even us. The experience had also deepened Max's understanding of his role in Danny's life. The dog became even more attentive to Danny's emotional states and more proactive in providing intervention before situations became overwhelming. Danny and Max's story inspired other families dealing with autism to consider service dogs for their children. Rocky Mountain Service Dogs reported a significant increase in applications following the media coverage of their story. Not every autistic child is a candidate for a service dog, explained Program Director Dr. Robert Kim. But for children like Danny who have severe elopement behaviors, a properly trained dog can literally be the difference between life and death. The story also led to increased funding for autism service dog programs and greater awareness of the specific challenges faced by families dealing with elopement behaviors. 2 years after that frightening October night, Danny and Max continued their partnership with an even stronger bond. Danny's elopement attempts had virtually stopped, and when he did become overwhelmed, Max's interventions were so effective that crisis situations rarely developed. Max has given Danny a level of independence and safety that we never thought possible, Miguel reflected during an interview about their experience. He's not just Danny's service dog, he's his best friend, his protector, his guide through a world that can be overwhelming and scary. Danny, still largely non-verbal, had developed his own ways of communicating with Max. He would touch the dog's head when he needed comfort, lean against him when he felt anxious, and even attempted to brush Max's fur when he wanted to show affection. The story of Danny and Max became a teaching tool for autism advocates, service dog trainers, and law enforcement agencies. It demonstrated the unique ways that specially trained animals could assist children with disabilities and the importance of understanding autism when conducting emergency responses. Max showed us that love and loyalty can overcome almost any obstacle, said Dr. Walsh during a conference presentation about their case. His bond with Danny transcended training and commands. It was pure devotion to protecting a vulnerable child. As Danny grew older, Max continued to adapt his protective behaviors to meet the boy's changing needs. The dog remained Danny's constant companion at home, at school, and during family outings, always ready to provide comfort, guidance, and protection. Every day, Max proves that some bonds can't be broken, Sarah said during a parent support group meeting. He sees past Danny's autism to the beautiful soul underneath, and he's dedicated his life to keeping that soul safe and happy. Their story continued to inspire families and demonstrate the incredible potential of human-animal partnerships in helping children with special needs navigate the world safely and confidently. I still think about that cold October night when a 7-year-old boy with autism walked barefoot into the darkness, seeking relief from a world that often felt too loud, too bright, and too overwhelming. If Max had stayed safe at home, if he'd waited for human rescuers to find Danny, that story might have had a very different ending. But Max understood something that goes beyond training or commands. He understood love. He knew that Danny needed more than just to be found. He needed to be guided home in a way that respected his autism, honored his needs, and kept him calm throughout the journey. Their story teaches us something profound about the bonds between children with special needs and their therapy animals. These aren't just working relationships or medical interventions, they're partnerships built on mutual understanding, unconditional acceptance, and a love that sees past disabilities to the precious soul that needs protection. Now I want to hear from you. Have you witnessed the special connection between a child with special needs and their therapy animal? Have you seen how these incredible partnerships can transform lives and provide safety in ways that human care alone sometimes can't achieve? Share your experiences in the comments below, because at Saved by Tales we believe that every child deserves a guardian who sees their worth, understands their needs, and will never give up on bringing them safely home. If Danny and Max's story moved you, if it reminded you of the incredible healing power of unconditional animal love, please share this video with others who need that message of hope. Hit that like button, subscribe to Saved by Tales, and help us continue telling the stories of four-legged heroes who prove that love knows no disabilities, recognizes no limitations, and will cross any distance to protect the children who need them most. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest protectors come with four paws and hearts full of understanding that humans are still learning to achieve.